An artist is an explorer. Henry Matisse.
Hi, I'm Judy, an artist and an art teacher, and today we've got some fun exploration using chalk pastels. I hope that you have some pastels handy. Any kind of paper will do. If you don't have any chalk pastels, try this exercise with pencil or markers or crayon. I'll be showing you techniques with chalk pastel, but you can use any materials to explore form with light and shadow, landscape to create depth, or anything to explore your style. First, I'll use the chalk pastel on its side to create a base layer or a ground layer. Here I'm using a brown with a little bit of black, but you may use any color you want. You may smudge and shade it in with paper towel, or you may use your hand. I love this technique of drawing with my eraser. It is so easy. For this exercise, I will be exploring three-dimensional forms. Using two overlapping squares connected by the corners, I will create a cube, and I will smudge out lines I don't want. Then I'm going to put a cylinder on the top surface of the cube. I will use a curved line to show that it is a cylinder and an oval for the top of the cylinder. And then I'll start exploring with light and shade. As I fill in my form, I have to imagine a light source. In this case, it will be on the right-hand side. Therefore, the shaded area of the form will be on the left-hand side, and the shadow will also be cast in that direction. It can be fun to play with lights and darks of one color. It can also be fun to change it up. Go exploring, because you can. As you can see, I am creating the interior of my cube, and as I develop it, I will create the interior to be the darkest as it doesn't receive any light. Have fun blending and don't feel like you have to be done with something to go on to the next area. I'm going to create a surface upon which my forms will be by dividing my paper in half and shading the bottom half green. As it mixes with the brown, I will naturally get some lights and darks, and I can enhance those later. I'll be using some yellow in the background, and then I will develop my cylinder. Chalk can create a lot of dust, and be careful as you are blowing it off your page. Don't try to swipe it off. You'll smear your artwork. With my cylinder, I am creating a very dark interior, and I'm outlining the base because where an object touches another object is a very dark connection. And then I'm going to start with the shadow. I am imagining the light source and therefore imagining the shadow. I like casting shadows on an angle because it's easy to read as a shadow. And I'm shading the chalk in and imagining the cylinder would also cast a shadow. Going back with my base helps me to outline the form of the shadow. As I work with the cylinder, it's curved, and so my highlight and my shaded lines will also be curved. As I work with my final colors, I've imagined these forms. You can set out some forms to observe and work with pastels or any medium of your choice. As I finish with these highlights, working with three-dimensional forms, we'll be getting ready for our next exercise in pastel, working with depth. My talented editor is assisting me in this demonstration, still using a base color we will be working to create a landscape with some depth. Remember, when working with a landscape, you're working with lines that have irregularities. They are organic. Here we are adding a path, as the lines to create the path are wider at the base of the paper and taper along the horizon line. That creates an illusion of depth. Creating a sunset in the sky, we'll start at the top of the page with red and fade into orange and then blend into yellow. We added more pastel layers to create really good colors. It can be really fun and relaxing to just play with the chalk pastels. As we move into the mountains, we'll use purple, which is yellow's complementary color. We will also imagine a light source, and with the light coming from the right-hand side of the middle mountain, the left-hand side of that mountain will be darker. Also, mountains are rugged and have crevices and crags, and so we will imagine some areas that are darker and shaded because of the texture of that form. We'll continue with our color choices as we fill in the rest of the mountain range, but consider with your mountain not only the time of day, but the time of year as you make your color choices and imagine your mountain range. Have fun exploring color combinations, and if you're using purple, look at how browns and oranges can change the tone of your purple, or how can you lighten purple with a little bit of white or red. Pastels are really fun for layering, and generally any medium is. Don't expect to have a one and all done layer application with any medium you're working with. And with these mountains, we're layering purple and, considering the light source, adding some yellow highlights. Be aware not to overblend. For instance, when using complementary colors like purple and yellow, blending them together can give you brown. So lightly engage the colors together and let them live. We'll start developing the mid-ground of this landscape. Again, remember, you get to imagine what time of year is this. And with that choice, you can make your color choices. So if you're working with a winter landscape, maybe you're working with blues and whites. And if you're working in the late summer, maybe you're working with golden yellows. The path will need to be developed using the lines that were created earlier and shading the path in. In this landscape, we are exploring depth, and depth is an idea where you feel like you can go into your picture. One way we're creating this illusion of depth is by having these mountains in the background and this path, which, as you saw, tapers at the edge of the mountain and expands as it comes down to the bottom of the page. Another way we will be adding to this illusion of depth will be to create a tree that lives in the mid-ground of the paper. Remember that trees are wider at the base and generally taper as they go up. I like to also remember that you can find lots of Ys or Vs in trees to help me in creating a good form. Remember to experiment and explore with color to create the texture of your object, as well as considering the light source. We will continue to use colors that show a light coming from the right-hand side, and we will darken the back side of the tree, and then we'll cast a shadow. As I've mentioned, I like casting shadows on an angle to help the viewer see it as a shadow. As the shadow falls over the path, it's going to dip into the path because there's some thickness to the ground area. So that will show with a dip in the road, and then it'll rise up over the ground area again. Remember, with Mother Nature, so many variations are possible. Tall grasses, rocks, maybe in your foreground you have tall flowers growing. As we finish up this landscape with our illusion of depth, we'll be adding some grass in the foreground and maybe at the base of the tree. We'll be adding some darker tones to the mid-back section of the tree and some highlights. Be willing to explore and look at your natural environment for ideas. This is just one way. Art is awesome because there are so many right answers. As we move into this last exercise today with chalk pastel, I'll just be exploring, and with whatever medium you got out to work with today, be willing to experiment and just do you. Here I'm using the same technique that we've been working with today, using my eraser to draw, and I'm just going to play with color, exploring a simple flower shape. And while I'm not looking at a flower for this exploration, you certainly could. With whatever medium you've been working with today, you've been working with forms, lines, and shades. And I hope you've learned something about your personal style and have the opportunity to explore this idea. As you may have noticed through this experience today, that art doesn't always go the way you expect. And you have to be willing to be flexible, letting your creative idea transform and change. And that involves analyzing rather than criticizing your artwork, your exploration. As we move through our art explorations, we experience excitement. We get really excited about what we're doing and it's going fabulous. And then we are not so excited and sometimes discouraged and can feel like giving up. It is important to keep going. Through perseverance, we can continue analyzing what we like, and we can develop our personal skills and explore our personal style. So remember to give yourself time and space to complete your ideas. And don't be afraid to explore.
Thank you for exploring
With us. Have an artful day.